The long-awaited return of college football is almost over. We are 8 days away from week 0 kicking off. I am here to give you complete coverage and a preview of this 2023 college football season here on Sideline Sports with the newest show, College Football Fridays. Every Friday, 2 p.m., we will be going live. This episode will be pre-recorded. I'm moving back into school tomorrow. I'm still at home working some things out, getting ready to go back to school. So I didn't really have time to go live today, but we'll be live at 2 p.m. every Friday from here till the end of the college football season, giving you best bets, giving you game picks, analysis, thoughts, rankings, polls, all of it. I am very, very excited for this. And we start off with our preseason preview. I'm going to preview all the Power 5 conferences. I'll talk a little bit about the group of 5 conferences and which teams I think can make a New Year's 6 bowl and will be that New Year's 6 representative from the group of 5. But let's get right into it. Let's start off with the ACC. The ACC is a very, very interesting conference this year. I'm very excited for the ACC this season because one of my teams I'm most excited for coming up is Florida State. I really like what they did last year with Jordan Travis and company, what Mike Norvell was able to do and turn it around, especially the way they started off the season last year with a nice win over LSU, hoping they can do that again this season. But yeah, no, this is a team that I'm very excited for. They have a lot of returners on both sides of the ball. Mike Norvell, he has just continued to improve this team ever since it feels like Jameis Winston left and then later Jimbo Fisher went to Texas A&M. Mike Norvell has really done a great job getting this team on track and improving every year, year after year, and now a chance to do it once again with a team that has college football playoff potential. They're actually a team that I think can and probably will make the college football playoff, but they have some challenges in their way. Obviously, like I said earlier, we talked about how they're going to start off the season against LSU on a neutral site, which, by the way, I hate neutral site games. I think they are the stupidest thing in the world. But, they start off the season in a neutral site game against LSU. And then their schedule, they get a little bit of a break. They're at home against Southern Miss, at home against, or on the road against Boston College. And then week 4, they will play Clemson. Here's the thing for Florida State. If they can get through those first 4 weeks at 3-1 or 4-0, which basically means that they didn't get upset and they took care of business against one of LSU or Clemson, their schedule just seems to be a very favorable schedule. At home against Virginia Tech, at home against Syracuse, at home against Duke. They play Wake Forest and Pitt on the road. Those could be some trouble games, but then they're at home against Miami. The second half of that season, out of their Week 5 bye, it really just seems like a very, very favorable schedule. But they got to get through those first 4 weeks. They got to be able to take care of business against LSU, and they have to be able to take care of business against Clemson. And if they're able to do that, this team might host the college football playoff as long as they don't shoot themselves in the foot. So look out for Florida State this season, especially, like I said, with Jordan Travis and Mike Norvell, a team I'm very, very excited for. This is a team, like I said, college football playoff aspirations, college football playoff potential. I touched on Clemson a little bit. They're in a very similar boat in the sense they're going to start off at home on the road against Duke, then they play at home against Charleston Southern, and at home against Florida Atlantic. Basically, they should be 3-0 heading into that Florida State game in a very, very tough matchup for both teams early in the season. This is a very, very important year for Clemson. For me, this is going to determine if Clemson is still that top-tier program, and they just went through a couple of tough years. Obviously, things didn't work out with DJ Uiagalelei, and now they have Kate Klubnik under center. So this year is going to really determine whether it was more about just a 1 or 2 year off, or if this program really took a hit after they lost Trevor Lawrence. They're going to have to rebound and figure some things out after the season. But very, very nice, very, very good quarterback up and coming. K Klubnik. I'm very excited to see what he can do. They're similar to that week 4 matchup against Florida State. They're already circling on their schedule. It's going to be a very, very tough matchup. And probably whoever wins that game is going to probably come out as the number 1 seed in the ACC. But the ACC is a little different this year. The ACC is a little different. It's not like last season where it was division and the same conference straight away in the division. It's just the top 2 teams. So we could see these 2 teams match up twice this season. Once in the regular season here in September, I believe it's September 23rd, yes, September 23rd, and then once, and in November, playing for conference December conference championship. But Clemson, they travel to New York, they take on Syracuse, and they take on Miami. That could be a little bit of a tough game. NC State team, so don't sleep on NC State. That team still calls impossible. They're going to be athletes, and then they get Notre Dame, and then they have to face Notre Dame or any other tough matchup. I'm very, very high on Notre Dame. Talking about them with the ACC review. But so what is the defense keeping us hold up against the offense? Is that NC State going to be a little bit of a trap for Notre Dame? Miami is going to be a team for them. I still think Miami is in trouble. Nobody traffic for them. Easily another traffic Clemson. Share screen. Share screen. They're not going to do it. That's not what we're doing. I'll just keep talking. But yeah. It's very Notre Dame technically trap game for Clemson. So those are all things you're going to want to look out for. And then we got week 12 against at home against Carolina. Clemson totally tough down the stretch here. And these will make preseason the best players in the entire country. Very well. I have the finalists this season. Coming out of Carolina, that North Carolina offense. They have Brown on the helm still. This is a team that's caused trouble last year. This team. I know last year they kind of got pummeled by Clemson in the championship game, but. Either way, then you go to week 13, they got to face a South Carolina team that beat you this season. So basically, you're in this little bit of a gauntlet from week 9 to week 13. On the road against NC State, then you got 3 home games against Notre Dame, Tech, Carolina. Then you're on the road against South Carolina. If you lose this Florida State early in the season, you come to that stretch, and your season comes to the end. I really don't see it. I honestly do not know if Clemson is going to have the ability to rock their roster compared to their schedule to make college football playoffs this year. I really don't think so. I am not high on Clemson this year. I've been high on the last 2 years, and they disappointed me, so maybe that's why. But I am not high on this team heading into this season. I really do not think Clemson has the firepower to make college football playoff. I have them looking at about a three-loss season. I have them losing to Florida State. I have them losing to Notre Dame. And I have them dropping one to Carolina, whether that's North or South Carolina. This is a team I just don't think has it this year. I really don't think they're the same program they were once when they had Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson. The huge Clemson team. I don't think the defenses are as good. I still think this defense is very, very good. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think it's as good as it once was. They don't have the weapons that they used to. They don't have the Hunter Renfrows. They don't have the DeAndre Hopkins. They don't have the Travis Etienne's. I don't think Cole Thompson is necessarily Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson. So, yeah, Clemson's a team I'm not very high on heading into the season. Let's touch on North Carolina a little bit. And what they have, they start off week 1 against South Carolina, a huge game. I believe that is a part of this week 0. No, it's week 1. It'll be week 2. Week 2? No, it's week 1. Okay. Yeah, week 1. Okay. That's traditional week 1. But this is a team I am very high on. I love Drake May. They lost Josh Downs. I'm not saying this is going to be a conference championship team. I'm not saying this is definitely not going to be a playoff team. But this team's going to call some noise. If they're the team that beats Clemson, their schedule, they avoid Florida State. So you get South Carolina, you come out there with a win. You're cruising through the first 3 weeks then. You're going to beat Appalachian State at home. You're going to beat Minnesota. I have them beating Pitt, right around. Them and Pitt are going to be very, very tough matchup. And then you're at home against Syracuse, win. Home against Miami, a win. Home against Virginia, a win. On the road against Georgia Tech could be a little. Georgia Tech I know is not great. Don't think that they're gonna be great, but I think for some reason there's something telling me Georgia Tech's gonna upset a top dog in the ACC this year at some point throughout the season. But you're at home against Campbell, win. At home against Duke, that's a win. You have a tough end of the season against Clemson and North Carolina State. So there's really 4 games on here that North Carolina, if they can go 2-2 in those, they could be sitting pretty and playing for a conference championship or maybe making a New Year's Six bowl this season. I mean, Drake May's going to be a Heisman candidate all season long. I believe as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be a Heisman finalist. Next week when I give out my best bets for playoffs, conference champions and stuff, I'm going to include Heisman. Drake May is 1,000% going to be on that list. But that's all we're going to touch on the ACC for now. Once again, I'll give my full prediction next week on who's going to win the conference. It'll be a longer show next week, but now we got to switch. Actually, you know what? No, I'll say now. I think Florida State's going to win the conference. I think Florida State is going to win the ACC this season. I love what they were able to do last season. I love the improvements that they were able to make. I talked about them so much. That defense is going to be stellar. They continue to bring guys in. Mike Norvell showed last year that he has what it takes to be a top coach in college football. So I'm going to say I'm rolling with Florida State as my ACC champion. And now we switch over. We are now going to talk about the Pac-12, the exact opposite side of the coastline. And this is a conference obviously in shambles. Obviously, this conference is hanging on by a thread at this point after, all the schools that they're losing. But this is a quarterback-heavy conference. This is a conference loaded with high talented quarterbacks. Michael Penix, DJ Uiagalelei, Shakur Sanders, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams. Cam Rising's coming back. This is a conference loaded with star-studded quarterbacks, and I think it's going to be carried by the quarterbacks. These are going to be heavily offensive teams loaded on offense. So starting off, let's talk about Colorado. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm not high on Colorado this season. I think this is a team. I took their under win total at 3.5. For the main reason, I just don't think there's enough around them. I just don't think there's enough it's so hard. It would be so hard. People are overhyping them because of Deion Sanders, obviously. And I love Coach Deion and Coach Prime. I think that he's going to do great things at Colorado while he's there, but not this season. Because he doesn't – it is so hard. Like, I see people saying national championship, conference championship. This was the worst team in college football last year. The worst Division I FCS school or FBS school in college football last season. It would be a miracle. There is almost nobody on earth that can go in and take this team and make them a national championship contender. And I see people comparing them to TCU. I don't think that's an anomaly. That's an anomaly. It's just so hard. That doesn't consistently happen. It just doesn't happen. I think Coach Prime, Deion, whatever, he's going to take a more accelerated path to success. And, maybe next year or the year after, this team might be battling for a conference championship while they move to the Big 12, obviously. But right now, this team is not a team that is built for a conference championship. There is a reason the line is set so low. We see a lot of people jumping on the over there. So I believe last time I checked, there was like 79% of the money was on the over 3.5 win total for Colorado. That's not hitting. That will not hit. I'm taking the under. I don't think they have necessarily what it's going to take, especially in a loaded conference like the Pac-12 is this year. So many great talented teams with great quarterbacks. Oregon, obviously, how great they were last year. Up until the end of the season, they fell off the wheels. They lost it a little bit. But Bo Nix coming back, that's a guy that could be a Heisman candidate. Washington's a team I'm very excited for. Michael Penix Jr., he could be included on that Heisman candidacy, best better Heisman candidacy list of mine coming out next week. Caleb Williams, obviously defending Heisman, was literally one win away against Utah twice throughout the season and went out there on one ankle and still put up a fight for USC from making the college football playoffs. He's back, and USC could very well be going back for redemption. Utah, they probably would be back-to-back Rose Bowl champions if Cam Rising didn't get hurt both years. Back-to-back conference champions, a team, again, loaded with talent, loaded with skill. And then you go back, UCLA, they're going to be taking steps. Chip Kelly really has turned this program back into their winning ways. What is DJ going to be able to do at Oregon State, a program that's took massive leaps over the last few years? I think, I mean, this conference, there's so many tough battles so early, and it's going to be very, very fun to see. I mean, obviously, Oregon, they start off their season. I mean, they usually play a very, very tough out of conference game. They actually don't play it, but week 7, not even the middle of October, right around the middle of October, we have Oregon versus Washington. I mean, this is just going to be a loaded slate. Baylor versus Utah week 2. Week 1, I don't think there's any big Pac-12 matchups. Utah versus Florida. Utah going through a little bit of a gauntlet themselves. I mean, they're going to have a tough schedule, and that's why I don't think Utah is necessarily a team I think that's going to be in the conference championship again. I mean, Florida and Baylor right out of the gate. You got UCLA and Oregon State week 4 and 5. I mean, you're out of September, and 4 out of your 5 games are against very, very good Power 5 teams. They have one of the toughest schedules in the entire country. They get USC week 8. They get Oregon week 9. Washington week 11. I mean, their schedule is so tough. I don't think Utah is going to necessarily be up in that level to be a college football playoff team this season, or even a conference championship team. I don't think they're going to actually end up being back in the Pac-12 championship for the 3rd year in a row. USC, looking at them, obviously what they were supposed to accomplish last year and what they were so close to doing, but they fell off right at the very end. They get some smooth sailing. They get some smooth sailing early in the season, and they get at home against San Jose State, at home against Nevada, at home against Stanford, on the road against Arizona State, on the road against Colorado. They don't even do a hiccup at home against Arizona, 7-0 pretty easily, and then they get a tough matchup against Notre Dame. And that's the Notre Dame team I'm very excited for. This is the Notre Dame team I think, is going to be able to do great things this year. And then they're at home against Utah, a team that owned them last year. If they can come out of there even with only 1 loss, I mean, you would like to ideally come out with 2, and then they go in and, again, a gauntlet to end the year. At home against Washington, on the road against Oregon, and at home against UCLA. That's going to have to be a 2-3 stretch, through those 5 games. Through, I would say, those 6 weeks, week 8 to the end of the season in week 13, they're going to have to be obviously 5-1 in that stretch. They're going to have to find a way to figure it out, whether that's against Utah or against Oregon or against Washington or Notre Dame. They're not going to drop games. That's the thing about the Pac-12 this year is you're not going to be able to drop stupid games at a school like, for a team like Stanford or Cal or Colorado, teams that are not as talented as you. If you're going to want to expect to be sitting in the Rose Bowl, if you're going to want to expect to be having a chance at the college football playoff, playing for the Pac-12 championship, you're not going to be able to drop little games like that. There's just too much talent in this conference between all these quarterbacks and all these schools, that are all these programs that are up and coming and building for their transfer. Obviously, the Pac-12, they're in a little bit of some shambles right now. They're going to be losing a lot of their schools, a lot of their big schools. They only have 4 schools left at this moment. Very interested to see what they have going on in the future. But nonetheless, my conference championship pick is I think we're going to see Washington versus USC, and I think USC is going to win the conference. I just think they're the clear-cut best team in this conference. I think that they just couldn't handle Utah last year, and that's the only thing that held them back. I think Caleb Williams is going to be just as good. Could compete for a second Heisman and only be the second person to win 2 Heismans, especially back-to-back. But I just think this Utah team is the clear-cut offensively and defensively, the best team in this conference all around. I think they have the best I do think they have the best coach in this conference in Lincoln Riley, the best quarterback in Caleb Williams, who's also the best player in probably the country. So I'm going to go with USC as my Pac-12 conference champions. And now we switch over to the other 12, the Big 12. So many new additions to this conference this year and in the coming years. This is going to be a fun one. Last year of Oklahoma and Texas in the Big 12, and also the first year with BYU, wrong Utah school, BYU, Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF as members of this conference. I'm going to try to get through this conference pretty quickly. There's a lot of teams, but really I think this comes down to, in the end, I don't think TCU is going to be able to repeat the same success. I think Baylor takes a step back. I think Cincinnati and Houston are going to take some time to adjust to being Power 5 schools. I think this ultimately comes down to 3 schools, Texas and Oklahoma, obviously. I think sitting on the back burner, a team people need to watch out for is the Kansas Jayhawks, another team loaded with talent, not want to say loaded, but a team that is just as good as I think they were last year. I think they were a little bit better than their record showed, This is a program that's taken massive leaps over the season with Jalen Daniels. Is that Jalen Dan? I want to say it's Jalen Daniels, or he might be. I always get him and LSU's quarterback. Their names confused. I can decipher them. Jalen Daniels. It's Jalen. And then Jalen, or is LSU's also Jalen Daniels? No, it's Jade. Okay, Jaden plays for LSU. Got it. Okay, I was right, and I just second guessed myself, but I got it figured out. But Kansas, a team, I think maybe I'm dreaming a little bit here. I would love to see them get up there, but ultimately, Texas Tech, another school, another squad that I think could cause a lot of trouble in the Big 12. But ultimately, it comes down to that Red River Showdown. I think whoever they're gonna. I think they'll match up in the conference championship before heading to the SEC. But one of them usually kind of folds or slips down. But I think this is gonna be a great year. I think Brent Venables is gonna have a much better season this coming year with Oklahoma than he did last year in his first year. I wouldn't say Oklahoma's back. Definitely wouldn't say Texas is back. But Texas, Quinn Ewers, obviously a team that I think did not meet their expectations last year. Gave Bama some trouble. I just don't know if Texas – the thing with Texas is they're going to have to beat Oklahoma twice and not slip up to make it to the college football playoffs. That's my only thing with Texas this year is I don't think that they're a college football playoff team because I don't think they can beat Oklahoma twice, not slip up and beat Bama. I think they're going to – they can lose one game probably and make the college football playoffs. And I just think the Big 12, they're just going to eat each other alive. I don't think any Big 12 teams are actually going to make the playoff. They're going to beat Rice. We'll say they beat Rice, lose to Bama, beat Wyoming, beat Baylor, beat Kansas. But, how are you going to go through Baylor and Kansas and then get through Oklahoma? Come out of the bye, you play Houston. Houston's going to upset. They're going to cause some chaos. I think they'll beat them. Kansas State's another team people got to watch out for. Obviously, the defending conference champions. They lost a little bit. But, this team, they're a program that's been consistently kind of there. I think this is another New Year's Six Bowl team in Kansas State, but I just don't think the Big 12 is going to be able to have a playoff team. Kansas State's another team. I think that's, they're going to be right there. So I said 3 to start. Started off when I started talking about the Big 12. I said there are 3 teams I think that can win this conference. There's 5. Oklahoma, Texas, Texas Tech, Kansas, and Kansas State. I don't think TCU is going to be able to repeat the same success. I think they lost way, way too much defensively and offensively. I think their defense kind of got exposed against Georgia, obviously, at the end there. And I think it's going to get exposed a couple times, little bit throughout the season. I think Sonny Dykes, definitely put this program on the map, though, and really put them in the right direction. So a lot to look forward to with that team in that conference. But I think this comes down to, obviously, I think the conference championship is going to be Texas. I love this Texas team this year. I think their really only thing is if they can get through that Oklahoma team, if they can avoid losing to that stretch of Baylor, Kansas, Oklahoma, Houston, if they can come out of there 3-1, I think this is a conference championship bound team pretty clearly. I think they're going to match up. Originally I was thinking Oklahoma, but the more I think about it, this Kansas State team, they're just, I feel like they're just as dangerous as they were a year ago. I think we get Kansas State and Texas matched up, but come on. Horns up. Quinn Ewers, in my opinion, is probably the second or third best player in the entire country. He didn't have a great year last year. He battled a little bit of an injury that he suffered in that Alabama game. But Quinn Ewers is an absolute dog, and this Texas team is definitely going to cause some damage this season. So I think Texas is going to be the Big 12 Conference champions, and that is actually going to conclude the first episode of College Football Fridays. We'll have so much more structure and so much more to talk about next week when we finish off our preview, when I talk about the Big 12, Big 10, and the SEC. And we also get to, get a couple game predictions in there. I'll talk about Heisman. I'll release my first preseason rankings. I'll have my week 0 best bets, favorite plays. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at @Cole_Tom for all my best bets and all my plays for not only college football, but the UFC, the NFL, the PLL, all sorts of sports. I'm out there grinding them away, pushing them out, driving them out. Thank you for tuning in to the very first episode, and make sure you subscribe to Sideline Sports and me on all platforms. Obviously, this episode, it's the first time we're doing it. First time we're doing it. It may have been a little rough here and there, rough around the edges. It'll be so much better next week when I'm actually able to talk about a little bit more about the games, and I have a little bit more structure with it. But thank you guys once again for tuning in, and I will see you guys next week when we get ready for week 0. College football is just 8 days away.